Oh, do I have to hit?
Hi, welcome
do I have
back
to do something
to
there?
the oh, no. Hey guys, League podcast. Today we are joined by a very special guest, and Goran Paladin. How's it going?
Very good, boys. How are things?
Awesome.
Good. We were talking before the podcast, and we've realized that we live on the same street pretty much, which is a crazy coincidence.
This is unbelievable, eh? I mean, how long have you been in Birkdale for, Connor?
I've been here for about 10 months now. I moved from Birkenhead just down the road, so.
Wow. Well, yeah, I've been in Birkdale for about 10 years, so I've probably driven past your house a few times, but yeah, small world, isn't it?
Very small world. So what we like to do at the start of every podcast is we like to do a segment called the set of six. So basically, I'm going to ask you 6 quick fire questions, and you have to answer with what comes off the top of your head.
Okay, cool.
All right,
fire
let's
away.
do it. Favorite fast food?
Oh, Wendy's.
Favorite sports event you've been to in your life?
All Whites Bahrain 2009 in Wellington.
Who was the biggest Origin snub this year?
Jake Trbojevic.
I totally agree with that one. What are your predictions for State of Origin?
New South Wales to win always.
Oh, come on, mate. And what's your favorite vacation spot?
I like going to Fiji. I've been 5 times and I'm going back again this year. Woo!
There's the one. And your favorite sports team of all time?
Parramatta Eels.
Parramatta Eels. Wow.
Yeah.
Is it weird that because are you a Parramatta Eels fan?
Oh, yeah. So a little bit about me. Yes, I'm a Kiwi and have lived here since I was just approaching 5 years old, but I was born in Parramatta. So to Kiwi parents, well, Dad was a Croatian born in Auckland, but when I was born, the family was living in Australia at the time, and we were living in Parramatta, literally like a stone's throw away from the stadium. So I was born in 81. And through the early part of the 80s, Parramatta were the best team in the world. And we could just sort of sit out on the driveway and watch people coming and going to the stadium after win after win after win. And I suppose it's just something that stayed with me for my whole life. Like once you support a team, you don't really go back on them. Obviously, yeah, a huge Vodafone Warriors supporter as well. This is where I live, Auckland City. And I want the Warriors to do well, but I've got the blue and gold running through me, and I always have, always will.
Yeah. I always thought just because you do all the Warriors stuff that you're a Warriors fan. I just always assumed it, but yeah, it's sort of interesting to know. So we do a trivia thing on the podcast. We do I think we've done it 5 times now for guests, and they've got it wrong every time. So no pressure here. You can be the first one, but well, it's a Warriors-based question for this year. You obviously cover them, okay, so it could help you. Who has scored the most tries for the Warriors this season?
Most tries for the Warriors this season. Oh, boy.
Not many tries have been scored this year, so it's a tough one.
How long do I have? Is there a stopwatch? Can I Google it?
Yeah. People have just been struggling. Like we asked the Mad Butcher, who's the top point scorer for the Warriors, and he didn't know. We've asked people we think they're easy questions, but people just seem to struggle with them. So,
even though he's missed a bit of game time, I'm going to say Dallin Watene-Zelezniak.
We've got our first ever correct answer. Well done.
Boom. There you go.
Yeah, there was Fantastic. A bunch of people on 4 or 5 tries, and he's got 6. So yeah, who would have thought?
Brilliant.
Well
I'm pleased to be the first person to get the answer to the question.
Yeah. So focusing on you, obviously, we like to sort of go through people's journeys. We're wondering what sports were you interested in growing up, and did you actually play any sports growing up?
Yeah, I played a lot of sport growing up, but my main ones were football, so round ball, soccer, and tennis. And basically from the age of about 5 or 6, I played football. And then when I was 9, I think mum sort of passed it off as, hey, you can stay fit for the football season if you play tennis in the summertime. But I think she just wanted me out of the house all the time. So she got a bit of free time herself. But I played tennis in the summertime, football in the winter. And I don't know, like I've often said that I'm kind of like not an anti-New Zealander, or maybe a reverse New Zealander is a better way of putting it, in that most Kiwis will play rugby union in the winter and cricket in the summertime, and I kind of avoided both of those sports, but played those two. I was a big football fan, big football player, played a bit of age group stuff for Auckland, sort of from 14 through to 17 years of age. But then work and study got in the way. Also played a bit of table tennis, represented Pakuranga Intermediate and Edgewater College out in East Auckland when I was a youngster. Really loved my table tennis. I'd go to Gillies Ave on a Friday night in Newmarket and play like inter-school competitions there. And I, as much as I love rugby league, like I really love rugby league, but I never played it. I was tiny growing up, and I was scared of contact, and I think my mum was scared of me getting smashed. So I never ever played the game. But because I was born in Parramatta, and there was that love of the team, love of the Eels right from the word go. That's sort of my favourite sport to watch. And most weekends I'll watch not only the Eels and not only the Vodafone Warriors, but I'll watch maybe 5 or 6 other games just because I've got an interest in the sport. But yeah, getting back to your question, football, tennis, and table tennis were my sports growing up.
Can't beat a bit of table tennis, mate. So fun.
I used to be all right, but if you played me now, I'd be utter rubbish, eh? Like, can't even get the ball back.
I'm tragic, bro. I think you got one up on me. But so obviously the Warriors are coming home soon. Will you be there?
That's the plan. Yep. I think I'll finally get out of the studio and get to a live Warriors game, which it's kind of strange actually, because I've been covering the Warriors for Sky since 2020, and in that time, so 2020, 21, 22, I haven't done a game at Mount Smart Stadium because they've been stuck in Australia. So when July rocks around, just a month's time, I cannot wait, because I've been to a lot of rugby league games at Mount Smart Stadium, watched the Warriors play from the Sir Peter Leach Mad Butcher Lounge, but yeah, I've never been involved in a game day broadcast from Mount Smart Stadium. So yeah, really looking forward to that, and hopefully Adam Blair and Lowly Monty Beetham and Honey Hiddleby Smiler will be there with me, and maybe I can even rope in Courtney Tidy to be sideline. And yeah, it'd just be bloody awesome to get there and soak up what should be an incredible atmosphere with thousands of people turning up and hopefully supporting them in a win against the West Tigers. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's like, everyone talks about the scary part of television. What is it like actually recording those things in the studio? Like, do you have to remember lines or anything like that? Is it scary to do those, or are you sort of gone used to it now?
I said this to my partner, Rebecca. I get more nervous cooking dinner in our kitchen than I do, hanging out in the studio, or, being at a live netball game or football game. Maybe it used to be something that made me nervous. Like when I was first hosting television, I did a show called Our First Home on TVNZ, and when you're first like thrown into the deep end, there are cameras all over the place. You've got sound crew hanging around, and they're trying to put things up your shirt, and you're like, hey, whoa. I don't go that way, man. Sorry, don't touch me like that. But it's all just part and parcel of it, right? So you've got people everywhere, and I guess you just get used to it over time. So yeah, I don't really tend to get nervous. And I suppose the other part of it is, and you guys will know this, yeah, you're starting out, but you just need to be prepared. So, you don't want to go in there and wing it. You want to be as prepared as possible. If it's the Vodafone Warriors up against the Manly Seagulls, who's in the team? What are the talking points? What's happened with the Seagulls recently? Jake Trbojevic misses out on Origin. He'll be wanting a big one this weekend. Just like make sure that you're well versed in the subject that you're covering, and you'll have a great time, and you won't be nervous. At the end of the day, you're in a really privileged position where you're talking about sport. and I think most people in New Zealand would give their right arm, right leg, left leg to do that. And, you know, you just got to have fun with it. And that's what I try to do at the end of the day, just have a bit of fun, and it totally takes the stress out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our dream. So for you to say that, it's very inspiring. So obviously, before you talked about Adam Blair, I must say, as a Cowboys fan, did not like him as a player. Absolutely hated him as a player. How is he as a and what does he do for Warriors TV?
Well, Adam he's awesome. Yeah, like I love the guy. He's fantastic. He's a bit of a jokester, but even though he's a bit of a joker, he knows rugby league inside out. And sitting in our green room out at Sky watching the Warriors play, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to watch Adam watch the Warriors, because, you know, a guy who's been in the game 15 years, played 331 first grade games, he knows how the game of rugby league should be played. And quite often the Vodafone Warriors sort of go against what they should be doing and come up with what they have been over the last 12 weeks. And watching him go, oh, they should be going this way, or why are they kicking early? Why are they kicking there? And all that sort of stuff. It's fantastic to be in his company. I'm kind of like you, Connor, in that when I watched him play, he frustrated me a little bit, because, you know, he sailed close to the wind, didn't he? He was always pushing the envelope. There was usually a mistake, an error, or a penalty in his game. But having spoken to him about his approach, he was basically just doing what he was instructed to do. He's a very studious and diligent player. And so if the coach, the management, the captain is saying, hey, Adam, I just want you to run this line. Just keep on running this line. Sometimes you'll get the ball, sometimes you won't, and just keep on niggling, keep on niggling. It wasn't really him. It was the instruction he was given to go out there on the field and do those things. So, you know, you'd learn a little bit more about the guy and his motives. And I'm totally forgiving for what I saw on the field now, because you understand the process behind it.
Yeah. As a Warriors fan, it was I felt like we got him a bit too late. Like, I enjoyed having him, but of course there were some days where he played amazing. Some days there was penalties and stuff, but that's the way it goes. Even with, I think Jazz is quite similar at the moment, Jazz Tavanga, but it's just the way it goes as a Warriors fan at the moment. But yeah. So going back to like the start of your sports reporting career, I was just wondering, did you take the route of university, or how did that like all come about at the start?
Yeah. Most people are told to have a plan when they're at school, and you know, you're working. Well, I'm showing my age here. You want to make sure your school certificate and bursary and all that sort of stuff, you nail that, and then your options are wide open for whatever you want to do at university. But the whole way through college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. And I failed my sixth form year. I failed my seventh form year. I think I only passed one subject in each of those years. And at the end of it, I just didn't know where I was going. And I thought that, you know, the perfect thing to do would be to work around the corner at the mobile service station, get, you know, cheap gas. There was a McDonald's in the same facility, so I'll be able to nip by, get a burger, frozen Coke, back to work. What a dream, just around the corner from home. And I remember my mum was not too happy about that plan for me. And so from there, I ended up doing a sports coaching course at Manukau Institute of Technology. And while that wasn't for me, when I was there, one of the lecturers was like, hey, Goran, do you actually think this is going to be a career for you? And I said, yeah, I'm loving it, loving life here. Can't get enough of the sports coaching. And they said, be honest. And I said, I hate it. And they were like, look, I've cut this clipping out of the newspaper, because, again, showing my age, this is what people used to do. People would advertise in the local rag, and this was an advertisement for the broadcasting school out of Christchurch Polytech. And she said, you know, you like to talk, why don't you do this? And so, I ended up applying for the New Zealand Broadcasting School course. Didn't really know what I was getting myself in for. Managed to get through. And then, I spent 2000, 2001, and the early part of 2002 studying not in Christchurch, but that opened up a campus in Glenfield on the North Shore of Auckland. And I started studying there. Even when I was there, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, because it was all like, it was a radio stream. It wasn't specific to television or journalism. It was radio. And all the radio that I listened to, I didn't really want to be a part of. Like, I didn't want to be on the, hey, it's the pop music station. It just didn't really fit who I was. And around the same time that I started studying, radio sport had emerged. And I thought, well, why don't I combine my newfound love of radio broadcasting with my longtime love of sport? And what they made you do, I don't know if this is still the case. They made you do the last 6 months. It was like a very intense thesis on something very specific, something very particular in radio. And I chose to do mine on sports commentary on radio. So by picking that, I was able to get my foot kind of in the door at radio sport. And I spoke to a lot of people. I spoke to Bill Francis, who was the head of radio sport and News Talk ZB back in those days. Spoke to Martin Devlin, spoke to Andrew Dewhurst, who was commentating football for radio sport. I even managed to have a chat with Alan McLaughlin, the old voice of rugby league on radio sport. And by doing that and doing a good job on the thesis, I turned down the internships that were on offer. You had to do like a 6-month internship as the final part of your degree. And I thought, nah, I don't want to go to More FM in Taupo. I don't want to go to some unknown music station in Gore. I've got my foot in the door here at Radio Sport. I think this is where I want to be. I'm going to see if I can get any work experience. And I did. And for months on end, it was unpaid stuff, but it was all part of the learning process. Got to work with Peter Montgomery, got to work with Ruud Kleinpaster, the bug guy on News Talk ZB. And from there, it just grew. And, like I think back to, I think it was May 2002, I first walked in the door at Radio Sport, and I was there for 17 and a half years. It was like the best time of my life, and I'd never change a thing. It was a weird way to get there, obviously not knowing what I was going to do out of school, and failing 6th form and 7th form. But and I'm not an advocate for like doing poorly at school. Don't get me wrong. Like, make sure you study. But it was. I literally would not change a thing, because it's been one hell of a ride for me, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to, obviously you're a Parramatta Eels fan. How are you feeling about them this year? Obviously got a strong side. I have them winning the premiership. I'm just going to check. So how are you feeling about them?
I'm feeling a lot better after hearing that from you, Connor. Look, they've got all the pieces of the puzzle, don't they? And they've shown it by beating Penrith in Penrith. They've beaten the Storm in Melbourne, but they're just a little inconsistent at the moment, aren't they? They'll come up against a team like the Tigers and lose. They'll let the Roosters get away on them before trying to chase them down, and they just left themselves too much work to do. I'd like to think that the Eels are going to go deep into the playoffs, but it's hard to look past the Penrith Panthers. And I know that the Melbourne Storm have had a few rough games recently, but they'll come good. Once Pappenhausen is back, their team looks a lot more balanced. They've been without Nelson Asafa-Solomona for a few weeks as well. They're doing it tough without Christian Welsh up front too. So, that's a big out right from the word go. I think he was injured in the first match of the season against the Tigers, wasn't he? So I still think the Melbourne Storm have a part to play in the premiership picture. I don't think the Cowboys will quite make it. Doing very well for themselves. Sorry, but bye, Connor. We'll continue this, Josh. But Yeah, I think the Eels will go deep. Will they make a final? Love to see it. Will they win it? Again, would love to see it. But Penrith Panthers are just, man, they're ridiculous, aren't they? I mean, what do you guys think of the Panthers? And how do you actually get up and beat these guys on a regular basis?
Yeah, well,
It just
insane.
just look fun, man. They're just having fun out there, just playing footy. It just seems like they're obviously really consistent, but it just looks like they're just walking into the game with the boom box. Like just their left edge is so deadly, and now they've got Taylor and Brian Toto on each side now. So they're definitely tough to beat.
Yeah, and I was looking at their team for this weekend, and they've got all these outs, but I still think they've got plenty in the tank to beat the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are really battling.
Yeah, we talked to this guy a couple of weeks ago, Darren Nichols. He was at Penrith for like 3 or 4 years, and he just said some of those guys since like under 12s have played together, like Cleary, Toto, Luai. He said that's why he reckons they're so good, is that they've been playing with each other since they're 11. It's like some of them, it's ridiculous. So
yeah, it's almost like telepathic links. They've been playing together so long, and you can see that with Nathan Cleary. He's like looking one way and pretending to pop a short pass, and then he'll fling it long. And Jerome Luai's always dancing around off the outside of him. So yeah, geez, it's hard to match that, isn't it? You can't really fabricate a partnership if it's been brewing for so long. Really, really difficult to match it.
Yeah. Well, I think the Eels have a good shot of making the grand final because for the last 2 years, Connors said a team's going to win the grand final, and they end up making the grand final and losing. So
wow,
that's a good. You're not going to win, but grand final is the way it's going.
Oh, well, at least we get to the big dance, eh?
Yeah.
14 other teams won't, but the Eels will.
Yeah. Talking about like 14, 15 other NRL teams, obviously the Dolphins coming in next year, and there's talk about an 18th NRL team coming soon and it being based in possibly New Zealand. So we're wondering what your thoughts were on that. And if so, if you do agree, where do you think it should be?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, eh? I mean, there's been some talk about Wellington hosting a team. I don't know if it was just like a little bit of speculation, but others were talking about Christchurch getting a team and maybe basing a team in the Waikato. But I don't know. Wellington seems the logical choice if you are going to have a second New Zealand team. Expansion, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a tough one, eh? Because if they expand to 18 teams, there's been talk about having a conference system, and although they would make sure that everybody plays everyone at least once, and then you'd play everybody in your conference a second time, I don't know. It just doesn't sort of float my boat, if you get my drift. I mean, I'd love to go back to a competition where you actually, you sort of concentrate the talent as opposed to dilute it. Make sure you've got enough players right across the competition to make sure that the majority of those teams are really competitive. Because at the moment, what we're seeing is kind of got like almost a top 5, a top 6, and then you've got 10 teams battling it out for 2 spots in the top 8. And the Vodafone Warriors are one of those teams. They're basically fighting it out with 9 other teams for 2 spots in the top 8. And is that good for the competition? Is it bad for the competition? I don't know. I'm not an administrator, obviously, but I just want to see the best possible product when I tune in every weekend. I don't want to see the Bulldogs getting flogged every week. I want to see all of the teams being competitive every weekend and making it really, really hard to pick results. Do we have the talent in Australasia to support a 17th or an 18th team? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I reckon Perth, to be honest. Perth could have a good shot at getting a team.
Yeah. Well, it's like you see the Dolphins team for next year, and it looks like it could be a wooden spoon contest. Like, obviously, they're still making like signings, but their team at the moment almost looks like at best, like maybe 12th or 13th team. They don't look great. So if you add another team to that, all of a sudden it's going to be even worse. So who really knows, to be honest? Like,
Yeah. But expansion teams have worked. I mean, look at the Melbourne Storm, look at the Brisbane Broncos. So, it can work. And when you think about it, North Queensland came in at exactly the same time as the Vodafone Warriors, and they've won a premiership. So, like maybe the Dolphins will go through some tough times early. There'll be a few teething problems, but they've also got Wayne Bennett in charge. And while he might look like he's snoozing most of the time in the coach's box, he's got a pretty decent idea of what it takes to win NRL games and premierships. So, yeah, it might look like a side that will be challenging for the wooden spoon, but mark my words, if anyone can, get a rabble going, it'll be Wayne Bennett.
Oh, absolutely. Watching what he did for that Queensland team a couple of years ago was actually ridiculous. Like, they were the worst Queensland team in history, everyone was saying.
Yeah.
And Wayne takes us to a 2-1 win. Like, that doesn't really happen now.
Nah. I don't think Queensland will have too many issues this time around. They don't really need like a super coach to get the job done. Like New South Wales they'll struggle, I think, this season in the Origin. I honestly don't know why they haven't picked Jake Trbojevic, because he's just one of these characters he is Origin. Like you always hear these people say, "Oh, he's an Origin player." Well, he's an Origin player. And even though Josh Adokar is with the Bulldogs now, his Origin record speaks for itself. And in a brilliant Blues team, he will excel again. So I think they've missed a couple of tricks, New South Wales, this time around. But that Queensland team looks pretty strong.
Yeah, even that Crichton, the centre at 14 is a bit strange. Like, people are going on what's going to really happen there. And Whiten's at centre. There's a lot of, almost seems like sometimes Fittler sort of tries to overcomplicate it a bit, but it's gone well for the most part. But sometimes you wonder, is he just overcomplicating it for the sake of it? But yeah.
Yeah, like when he picked pretty much a backline full of fullbacks. Like maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. Yeah, I suppose you're always trying to innovate, aren't you? And maybe that gets you across the line, and maybe it blows up in your face. But when you look at the Penrith Panthers and how well they've been playing, and Crichton's been scoring tries and looking pretty good in their back line, so why wouldn't you give them a go? I suppose now is the time. If the Penrith Panthers somehow start falling away, you can never pick Crichton, can you? As long as he's at the club. So now is the time to pick most of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Are you happy with Whiten in the team? Like, would you rather him or Hines?
I think I'd go Whiten, just because he has big game experience. I think Hines is still trying to find his feet. He's been playing really well as a full-time halfback at the Sharks, but I don't know. I like Whiten. He's a big body, big presence. One of these guys who likes to get up for these big games. So I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is his haircut. And I hope he gets rid of that mullet at some point, because it just looks so bad. Like, I can't talk. I don't have a great hairstyle, but he can actually help himself and just, tidy up the back part.
Yeah.
I don't know why he doesn't.
Before we go, I'm a big football fan as well, Man United fan. So I was, to be honest, wondering what teams you support. Are you a big fan of A-League, Premier League? What are the teams you're backing at the moment?
Yeah, I'm a Liverpool supporter. So yeah, I was a bit gutted the other day and the week before, missing out to Manchester City and Real Madrid. But we'll take 2 trophies. Yeah. We'll take 2 trophies. That's fine. That's an okay season. The reason I support Liverpool is when I was in my first season of football at Pakuranga Town AFC, all the young kids were put in different teams, and they were given English Premier League or English First Division team names. And so my team was Liverpool. I didn't know how good or how bad they were. I was just like, oh, well, I'm in Liverpool now, so let's find out more about Liverpool. And at the time, it just so happened that they were really good. My best friend, he was put in Queen's Park Rangers. And unfortunately, I don't even know how he finds game coverage of them. So I was pretty lucky to fall on Liverpool. And when it comes to the A-League, it's the Wellington Phoenix. Love the Phoenix and can't wait to see them back home so we can start covering their games at the Cake Tin, Sky Stadium. So yeah, it'll be a tough one next season for the Wellington Phoenix, though, given all of the departures, both confirmed and impending. I don't know how they rebuild the squad, but Ufuk Talay, if he hangs around, I hope he does. He's a bit of a, I don't know, he's got the golden touch. So whoever he manages to bring to the club, I'm confident that they'll perform. But it'll be hard without Reno Piscopo. I thought he started playing some really good football towards the end of this season, just gone. And to think that he's going to be playing for a different club in the A-League, it's kind of hurts a bit. But I've got confidence in Ufuk Talay, and I think they'll go really well playing back in front of their home fans as well.
Just before we wrap up, I want to do one more quick segment with you. It's called Yeah or Nah. So you say yeah or nah. It's rules in the NRL that have just come in. So say I say 6 again, you'd say yeah or nah.
Okay.
All right. Are you a fan of the 6 again?
Nah.
Are you a fan of the 2040?
No.
What about the 2-point field goal?
Yeah. That's okay.
That one's entertaining, I reckon.
Yeah.
Changes the atmosphere. And then the last one, are you a fan of the head-high send-offs?
That's a tough one. You've given me a yeah or a nah. I think that's a discussion point, isn't it? Am I a fan? I mean, sometimes you just shake your head and you go, "Oh, that's not a send off." But at other times, you're like, "Well, you've got to be sent off because there was definite intent and there was force." So it depends from head high contact to head high contact. You can't just make a blanket ruling. I'll say, nah.
No, I feel like they target players with that as well. Like Jaden Sewer, he's been simbined a few times for like a late shot, which is like just after the ball's been done.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back to the Storm Eels game, and I think was it Nelson Asofa Solomona hit somebody in the tackle. He may have been second or third man in, and collected somebody in the head. But it went unpunished, and maybe he got a fine afterwards. And then other players, there's like innocuous head contact, and they get marched for 10 or they get sent off, and they end up getting like 3 or 4 week suspensions. It's just I just want a bit of like I just want consistency, really, and I think that's all any rugby league fan wants at the end of the day. Like, that contact was very similar to that contact, so therefore the same thing's going to happen to that person. You know?
Yeah. So before we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, we've got guidelines from Spotify and stuff at the moment, so we got to finish in the 45-minute mark. But one last thing, what one tip would you give to someone looking to get into sports media in this climate?
I would say just have fun. Just have fun and be prepared. That's essentially it. You want to make things enjoyable for people watching on, and you want to be informed, so they're informed. At the end of the day, it is sport. It's not life and death. It's not brain surgery on an operating room table. We're not sending rockets to space with people on board. The rocket might explode. It's rugby league or whatever it is that you've chosen to cover. Let's make it fun. Let's make it informative, and let's all have a good time. And if you're prepared, I don't think there's much that can go wrong. And like, if you've got one camera on you or if you've got 17, just have fun. And that would be my message.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Goran, for coming on. We had a bit of a struggle for guests in the last few months, but we're actually starting to get more guests back onto the podcast. It's always hard rugby league season to especially get players. So we enjoy your sort of different perspective as a bit of a media member. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, no dramas at all, eh? Anytime you want any help, advice, banter, just meet me on the roundabout at Estdale, and we'll have a few yarns.
That was good.
Sweet. Thank you.
Sweet as.